breathe it in. Ah, bowl eligibility. It's become the new normal for Syracuse football over the last 3 seasons. But let's not kid ourselves. It hasn't been handed to them. 2 gritty overtime wins, 2 heartbreaking losses, and a whole lot of room to grow. But here they are, 6-2 with a trip to Boston College on the horizon. Sure, it's easier to coast downhill, but let's face it, the view from the top, much better. So whether SU is scaling heights or battling the valleys, it's headed to Chestnut Hill, and we're about to break it all down on Cuse Countdown. Next. Oh boy, someone let us back at the desk. Whose fault that was, I don't know. But Max Gifford, Della, Piana, and Sam Reis are with you on another episode of Cuse Countdown to break down Syracuse football's matchup with a Northeast rival in Boston College. Guys, I said it, Syracuse is bowl eligible for the third straight season. That's the first time since 1995 to 1999. The Orange have been in bowl games for 3 straight seasons. Wow. That, like I said, didn't come too easy. A big win against Virginia Tech, 38-31 the final in overtime. And that win was not given, it was earned.
You talk about getting a real scare there for Virginia Tech. You go down 21-3 in the second quarter of that game. But the relentlessness of this team, you talk about the dart. That is what Fran Brown has established in this system. D-A-R-T, and the R stands for relentlessness. That's exactly what Syracuse did in this game. It's their largest comeback since 2012, and when you climb out of a deficit like that, you got to show a lot of heart. And I give Fran Brown a whole lot of credit for that game. Rallying the troops, motivating this team to another gutsy home win. And I think for the most part, Sam, when we look at the numbers of this game, it proved that Syracuse doesn't need to throw the ball 50 times in order to win a football game.
Yeah, that is a big takeaway for sure. And, you know, if this was the Dino Babers era, the last several years really, this Syracuse team, I'm convinced, is not coming back in a game like this. I thought they were down and out for sure, and they come back from 18 down. This was a statement because I did not see this coming. To get the job done in overtime, in all aspects of the game, they stepped up in that second half, which is what you want to see from your team. Fran Brown has to be pleased with that resilience his team showed.
This game was certainly all in the details. That's that D in dart. But if you take away that D, you get art, and that first half was anything.
Yeah.
That first half was anything but a work of art for Syracuse. Down 14-3 at the half, and Fran Brown going into that break was not happy. Take a listen.
What pissed me off was the end of the first half. We allowed that kid to run and almost score, and I don't like that. That was quitting, you know. And that was the first time I saw guys just think it was okay, and that's what made me challenge everybody and challenge myself too. Because either you coach it or allow it. So I think from that play, it strung something because you guys don't deserve to see that, you know.
Well, I guess challenge accepted because Syracuse rallied back in the second half. They even went down 21-3 at one point. I guess Patriots fans, it wasn't 28-3.
I was saying that might have been better from our standpoint. It's a good comeback.
True.
But pretty much a tale of 2 halves.
Absolutely.
It was. And, you know, especially since Virginia Tech added on another touchdown about midway through that third quarter, I think everyone was thinking, what's going on here? Because the first half performance was pathetic. It was terrible. It's whatever you want to say. And Fran Brown, you know, said as much right there. So for his team to respond in the way they did, because, you know, the offense in particular was just a joke in those opening 30 minutes. I mean, you know, McCourt threw for fewer than 100 pass yards in that first half, and he's been averaging well over 300 a game. He finally woke up in the second half. Credit to the defense as well, who made a lot of plays. And how about, you know, the Syracuse offense and Justice Ross Simmons in particular breaking onto the scene. That was a beautiful sight.
And that was the best play and the turning point really of the game because the best thing about it, what Fran Brown said in that post-game press conference, that he talked with Jeff Nixon at halftime, and what I got out of that was he wasn't thrilled with the scheme. And what we saw was shades of that Pitt game where the offense was just running in circles. No, they didn't throw 3 pick pick sixes, but it sure looked like it in a game like that because Kyle McCord has had to really do everything this season. He's thrown north of 300 yards in every game but this game. But for the first time this season, I saw Syracuse establishing the run, getting LeQuint Allen the football. I mean, 21 carries, that feels like unheard of for an offense like this that has been revolving around QB1 all season long.
That first half, you mentioned, Andrew, shades of that Pittsburgh game against Syracuse. But that second half, and one player in particular, had a little bit of shades of the UNLV game.
Ooh,
talking about
like
LeQuint
that.
Allen, 121 yards and 3 touchdowns for the running back. Also set the program record for catches by a running back.
That's right, and it's a great element of his game that he's added along with the rushing. And it's really a shame, Sam, that it took 8 games into the season that LeQuint Allen did not have north of 100 yards in a single game. I mean, you look at the numbers against Pitt and then you compare that against VT. When you establish the run in football, friends, good things would happen. You run to pass, and Syracuse has not done that all season long. Syracuse averages the least amount of design run plays in the country, and now to have him add this level back to his game where we see him running the football at a high level but also catching the football, it just makes him so much more versatile, and you can use him anywhere in the offense.
That's the key with Allen. The fact that he is such a threat out of the backfield in the pass game as well. It's a lot to handle from a defensive perspective, and I'll tell you what, Allen needs to continue to perform this way because I had my doubts about the run game with the news that Yasin Willis was out, and we know Will Nixon is out for the rest of the season.
They had no running back.
It's just Allen. They have to rely on him. He delivered big time in this game. He has to continue doing that with big matchups ahead.
A lot of the headlines will go to LeQuint, his second game this season with a game-winning touchdown. First one against UNLV, this one against Virginia Tech. But someone who may not get all the credit, and I think it might have been something that Syracuse has been lacking a lot this season, that mob mentality with Marlowe Wax back in the full from injury.
Oh, Marlowe Wax, my guy, player of the game. We can give LeQuint Allen a ton of flowers, but you're right, the defense needs some love. Marlowe Wax needs some love. The way he's come back as well, from that injury on opening day. For a senior and a veteran like him, I have to imagine that 6-week recovery process was grueling. It was tough, but he wanted to get back on the field. Now, second game back, what does he do? He records 6 tackles in front of the home fans, 1.5 sacks. Oh yeah, he punched the ball loose for Fadil Diggs to recover and end up clinching the victory in overtime. He was Mr. Do-It-All in this game. Give Wax the love he deserves, Andrew.
I mean, it was so great to see him back in the Dome. He's only appeared in 3 games this season, Sam.
Yeah.
He's won ACC Linebacker of the Week in 2 of them. That's a pretty good percentage to have.
Efficient.
And he just makes such a big difference where Justin Barron can move back to a traditional role in the back part of the defense where he's more of a strong safety. He's kind of had to go into that hybrid role where it's just kind of a mess. It's not his traditional position. But now to see Marlowe back in the mix at a linebacker, I mean, he makes such a difference out there. 1.5 sacks, 9 tackles. Yeah, the stats tell the number, but the impact in the locker room as well. He's a captain of this team for good reason because of games like we saw last week.
Marlowe Wax has continued to do Marlowe Wax things, and the Syracuse defense, similar to the last couple of seasons, have continued to dominate up front, especially with Marlowe. But sometimes Syracuse has also had some discipline lapses that have also returned. The Orange had 11 penalties for 100 yards. Guys, do you think this was just maybe a one-off, or do you see this as a trend continuing?
It's too late for it to not be a trend, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a real concern, Andrew, because you win the game, but 100 yards of penalties, that's a whole football field.
That's good. Attaboy. There you go.
That's a lot of yards. That's a lot of yards that are racking up with 11 penalties. Simply unacceptable. And I thought this would be a change as well in the Fran Brown era. I thought he'd instill discipline, but it's just not there still. And they have no excuses. This was a home game. And we're far enough into the season, as I said, Andrew, where this cannot be happening. And against a different opponent, this is going to cost you.
I mean, just look at all the laundry on the field. I know we got the washing machine at home. We might just start bringing it to the Dome because how much laundry is on the field. I mean, 11 penalties in game number 7 of the season.
Ridiculous.
Just feels absolutely unacceptable. Is Dino Babers the coach once again? No. This is Fran Brown, a guy who has instilled detail and accountability into his players. You can't be doing that against Virginia Tech and still win the game.
Well, we might be living in a Dino Babers household because if you've ever lived with these two, you know their laundry is all over the floor every single day
I always clean
of
up.
the week.
It's him.
I'm not sure about that. Syracuse hoping for a much
organized.
cleaner game against Boston College, which leads us to our first break here on Cuse Countdown. We're going from the hill to Chestnut Hill. We'll tell you about the Eagles next. We're soaring through this show so far. Back on Cuse Countdown, Max Gifford, Andrew Della, Piana, and Sam Reis. Eagles, however, normally flock alone.
Yeah.
But we're still together. And we're going to talk about the
We are.
Boston College Eagles, who are playing Syracuse this Saturday. And it's been an interesting season for BC. Maybe a little bit of a victim of a halo effect, because you're ranked at the beginning of the year, number 24 in the nation. You lose to number 6 Missouri. You beat Florida State, which at the time, a lot of us thought that was maybe a good win. Ended up really being an absolute nothing burger. But BC has now lost their last 3 straight games, and nothing's gone right for the Eagles since then.
Yeah, nothing has gone right for the Eagles at all. I mean, just look at the schedule that they've lost. Virginia Tech, and Louisville. That Virginia team, just like this Boston College team, I never can take serious, but this team for the Eagles has consistently failed to put together 4 straight quarters of good football. And that's on either side of the coin. Just 2 weeks ago, they had a 20-0 lead against Louisville. It's a team that is now ranked in the second quarter.
Yeah.
You also lead 27-10 midway through the third, but then you absolutely blow that game in the final frame. Louisville scores 21 unanswered points, the second largest loss for BC in program history. It's games like that that decide season. BC just doesn't have it under control right now.
No, and that's the thing. It's the lack of ability for this Eagles team to string together a full 60-minute performance. To your point, it's one issue here, another there. You know, they can't get the run game going ever. It feels like the defense tends to collapse late in games like that Louisville game, and their special teams is basically non-existent. They never kick field goals, so they can't rely on that either.
Yeah, a lot of the questions coming into this game, especially for Syracuse, and I guess every game for this entire season is a bit about Fran Brown, him being the new coach. Can he really, coach his game through a full 60 minutes? BC has no problems on the coaching end, though. They have a guy in Bill O'Brien.
Chin guy, right?
Man,
He's got the chin butt, yeah.
He has been all around the block, including Penn State, including the NFL with the Texans and the Patriots, and even more that we can't even say. But with Bill O'Brien in the fold, you always have a good chance to win, it feels like.
Debatable.
Oh, come on.
Debatable. Listen,
He's got the great experience, though.
He does, but to be the head man for a college team, which he hasn't done in a long time, it is a little bit different than where he was in the NFL for a while. And the hire does make sense. It was a little strange to all of a sudden hear the news that Jeff Hafley was leaving the program, but O'Brien was a sensible hire, hometown guy. He's from Boston. But, with all that experience, it certainly makes sense to bring him in. But we're seeing that there's been a few bumps in the road in his first season in charge.
I honestly think that just comes with being a first-year head coach, to be honest. But again, like you said, though, he's a Massachusetts guy. He's from Andover. He went to St. John's Prep in Danvers for his high school. But he kind of fell into a weird situation where he was hired as the Ohio State offensive coordinator halfway through the offseason. He says, no, I'm leaving. I'm taking back my home coaching job at Boston College. Spent 9 seasons with the Patriots there. That Mac Jones era, Sam, did not go too well, as we both know. But Bill O'Brien is in kind of a weird spot where he has to really figure things out in year 1 quickly.
Sam, while we were off camera, was given a thumbs down.
Oh, he hates St. John's Prep.
He does not like St.
Don't say those
John's
words.
Overrated.
Prep. And Syracuse fans probably didn't like this guy, Thomas Castellanos, the quarterback for Boston College, who had the game-winning score last season when Carlos Del Rio Wilson threw 4 interceptions. But this year, after 13 rushing touchdowns last year, has really lacked that ability this year.
Yeah, this is not the same Thomas Castellanos we saw just a season ago. No. He's only completing passes at a 56% rate. And the thing that's been the biggest difference with him so far is he is not rushing the ball as much as he did last year.
No.
Last season, he was a 1,000-yard rusher. 13 times into the end zone via his legs. He's done a lot more on the passing side this year. He's only thrown 4 interceptions on 17 touchdowns. So he's taking care of the football a lot better, but he's just not the same on the ground. And the big thing with him, especially when he was at UCF, didn't get any playing time there, but as you can see on the screen, using his legs in different situations to extend plays, make life difficult for the defense, and that just hasn't been the case this season.
That is what's confusing about Castellanos, and maybe part of it is, new coach in charge, a different train of thought from Bill O'Brien in terms of how he wants to run this offense and running the ball less. But when he's such a threat on the ground, as the stats back it up from last season, why aren't they leaning on that more? I don't really know, because he has run the ball 88 times, to be fair, but just for 200 yards. I mean, these are small gains, usually when he's under pressure in the pocket and has really no other option but to run because of the lack of weapons this BC offense really has as a whole.
Yeah. Castellanos and that BC defense trying to step up and be 2-0 against Syracuse going back to last season. And the Orange have kind of gotten a 1-2 punch this last week with Antoine Powell-Ryland, the edge rusher on Virginia Tech, and now this week with Donovan Ezeraku.
Ezeraku, know the name because he's
Yeah.
going to make an impact against Syracuse on Saturday. I can guarantee that because week out, I should say, he's been Mr. Reliable. He's been consistent for this Boston College team. You look at the stats, unbelievable. He's averaging 7 tackles per game with already 55 on the season, more than all of last year. 9 sacks as well. He's so good at applying that pressure, getting to the quarterback. He is a problem for any offensive line that he's countering.
But the big difference is, Sam, that we saw from Virginia Tech last week is he's really the only good defensive end on the team.
That is true.
The really only good defensive players we'll get to in just a second. But he does such a good job in getting after the passer in a variety of ways. BC plays a collective 4-3 defense under Bill O'Brien. It's been a staple since he was at Penn State and even a couple of times at the NFL when he was with Houston. But he is just not as useful because there's not any other options out there to help him around the point. But again, he's still got to be dangerous, someone you have to take care of.
As Ezeraku said prior to this game, he's excited to go against a quarterback like Cal McCord who throws the ball so much.
Elite on elite, yeah.
But he's just one member of that BC defense, and you need an army to really succeed. But BC has only allowed just about 20 points per game this year.
Yeah, those numbers are maybe a little bit inflated from earlier in the season because the last 2 contests, Sam, this defense has allowed over 35 points per game against Virginia Tech, Louisville, teams that are all right offenses, but not the best in the entire world. When you look at this defensive back unit, 11 interceptions, 15th best in the FBS, pretty good. Yeah, just 8 last year, so you're turning on that problem. But at the same time, you're just not getting to the quarterback as often. You got the 4th least amount of sacks in the ACC. Ezeraku has been the only good player, like I said, on that defensive end. But you need more than just one player if you're going to take down a Syracuse offense that I feel is really hitting its stride right now.
It's true. I will say, the defense does deserve some credit. We were talking about the lack of discipline from the Syracuse team and the amount of penalties. BC actually has the fewest penalties. So the defense does need to be given some credit. But with that being said, the last few games do concern me where they've allowed a plethora of points and have been exposed a little bit more.
So not a ton of lack of discipline from the Eagles squad could play into their favor going against a Syracuse team that really has struggled these last couple of games with committing penalties. But the good news is these guys have no problems talking about anything Boston related.
It's true.
And that leads us to another break here on Cuse Countdown. I said we went from the hill to Chestnut Hill. We're staying in Boston for our next segment. We're doing some CC sightseeing next on Cuse Countdown. Here's a riddle for you. What do you get when you combine a Missourian and 2 massholes Well, our producers make us play a little game revolved around Boston. Guys,
Yay!
it's time to do some
Let's go.
CC sightseeing here on Cuse Countdown. Max Gifford, Della, Piana, and Sam Reis.
sick.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I mean, this is just beautiful.
Oh,
Guys,
I
we have a
love
nice
that.
little map for us planted right
Best
here.
city,
And
best
we're going to
city.
start with getting our legs moving a little.
right.
You know,
Okay.
you know, if you're like me, you believe you can actually walk a marathon in under 6 hours.
When
know,
are you gonna
i-
do
i-
that?
I don't
i-
think
i-
so.
You know,
No.
if you know, you know. So we're starting with the Boston Marathon.
Yeah.
I mean, is there any other way you say that in Boston? It's just the Boston Marathon.
It's the Boston Marathon. It's Marathon Monday. It's just.
It's a
Sounds
holiday.
good.
It's a holiday.
Right? It's a holiday?
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, how about you gift me an answer by
Oh,
telling
I
me
like that,
who
yeah.
needs to be, or who you think has been the most consistent player for Syracuse, because you have to be consistent in a marathon.
Well, the guy I've hammered on this whole show is LaQuinn Allen for good reason. I think that overtime game against Virginia Tech really sealed the deal for me. 3 touchdowns in that ball game. Yeah. He's got back-to-back game winners, and he's been called the heart and the soul of the Syracuse team. Not by his head coach, not only by his head coach, but the players, the fans of this team. You talk about grit of a player, and I think LaQuinn Allen perfectly defines that. McCord told a great story on Thursday that he was talking to Otto the Orange about playing in the second half. Again, I don't understand what that conversation was about, but he is for the people. He's for the mascot. You got to get on the LaQuinn Allen train. He's the best player on this team by far right now.
Yeah, I can't run a mile these days, never mind a marathon, but
Yeah,
a
it's
guy
true.
who's been consistent and that marathon runner for Syracuse game in, game out, that'd be Trevor Piana in the receiving game. Listen, he has nearly 600 receiving yards. That leads the game. I know you're off camera, Max, but don't give me that eye roll. I'll explain why he's been consistent. Again, leads the team in receiving yards. 74 receiving yards per game. He's consistent. Kyle McCord can continue to rely on him game in, game out. I get it. He hasn't found the end zone consistently as of late. He still leads the team with 5 touchdowns, and Kyle McCord continues to go to him. He continues to make plays. He really hasn't had an off game this season. That's why Trevor Piana is a great answer.
Hey, you both made great points. The rushing leader and the passing and the receiving leaders on this squad. But like most Americans, you know, Trevor Piana and LaQuinn Allen, you know, they're running on the field, but most of them run on this Dunkin' Donuts. It's just
It's just Dunkin'.
It's just Dunkin'.
They got rid of the donuts.
Dunks.
Well,
Dunks, yeah.
as you can tell, you know, not the Boston native. I'm not sure on my
all right.
my colloquial terms, to say the least. But with this being said, with America running on Dunkin', who needs to wake up for the Syracuse squad?
Yeah, a player, you know, I'm not saying this in a harsh way, but a player that needs to wake up, step up, and who did in the last weekend, the kicker, Jackson Kennedy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The special teams has been a huge issue recently.
There's been like 4 of them. Let's keep in mind.
Yeah, we're on like the 4th kicker, but this guy, second league all Ivy League team last year with Cornell. I don't know why they didn't go to him sooner. He made all 3 of his extra points this past weekend. He made a field goal from 44 yards. That's not possible with
unbelievable.
Syracuse football.
Rejoice.
So if he continues to step up this way, all of a sudden, a lot of the special teams problems could be solved. Jackson Kennedy needs to continue to step up.
Well, I'm not going to say punters and kickers don't matter, because they do.
They do.
I'm going to go with the
Of course
skill
they do.
position on this one. Some guy that needs to wake up, maybe 5 shots of caffeine before he gets on the field, is Aronde Gatson, someone who I thought was going to be an all-ACC first-teamer this year, because, again, you look at the numbers last year, he's fantastic, but only 37 catches. 484 yards, and just 3 touchdowns. Yeah, I get it. You want to put him at the end of the line so he can become an all-around tight end for the next level. But no, I want to see Aronde Gadsden in the flat, catch the football, run for 70 yards, because that's what he does best. And what I'm seeing right now is small little slant routes over the middle and not even getting him the football. Aronde Gadsden is best when he's out in space down the field, running as fast as he can. That's why he needs the caffeine to get going down the sideline and score some more points.
I like it.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny is that the 4 Eyes Della Piana chose the jock,
Oh,
and then
what?
Sam Reis, on the other hand, chose the nerd with the kicker Kennedy. So, you know, I'm not sure what
I
that
need my
divide
glasses.
is.
Can't
But we've
see.
got one more question here on this CC sightseeing, because we got one more place to go. We're going to the Massachusetts Turnpike. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
No.
The Pike.
No,
Mass
the
Pike.
Mass Pike.
Mass Pike. It's
Okay,
a
well,
pocket. It's always a
currently I'm
pocket
0
lot
for 3,
there.
you know,
It's
swing and a
always
miss, swing and a
traffic,
miss, swing and a miss.
too.
So for
Crying
this
out loud.
Mass Pike, I assume you guys know better than I do, stuck in traffic a lot on
Yeah,
I-90.
all the time, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Who
annoying.
needs to get more opportunities, you know, while they're stuck in traffic?
Well, it's a guy that might be a little bit buried on the depth chart. Again, stuck in traffic like most Bostonians on their morning commute. And it's Emmanuel Ross, right? You're probably thinking, who is that, Andrew? I have no idea. He's a freshman. He's listed at 6'2", 200 pounds. He's just behind Trevor Piana Virginia in the depth chart. I don't know if a lot of people knew that. He had a big game against Pitt, like you saw, 5 catches for 78 yards, and he was used in a traditional slot receiver role. Now, he was injured at the beginning half of the season, was wearing a boot for the most part, and he didn't really get a lot of snaps because of that. But once we saw him in game action, he was very reliable, and I'd like to see him a lot more in the offense, Sam.
Yeah, Emmanuel Ross, a good shout, but someone that I think, I would like to see get more and more opportunities after this past weekend is absolutely Justice Ross Simmons.
Yeah, great pick.
He was in a lot of traffic early on in the season on that Mass Pike. Injuries, other factors, waiting for his opportunity. There was talk about him potentially redshirting. What does he do this past weekend? He makes his first catch of the season, but not only that, he makes 3 more catches after that. He led the team with 88 yards. He found the end zone a couple of times. Give this man more opportunities because he proved his worth this past weekend.
So Andrew's got Ross. Sam's got Ross Simmons, so just add the Simmons at the end. I guess it's a good trend to follow. And it's been fun here with our C-Seat sightseeing, but we're not done here on Cuse Countdown. We've still got our predictions to give, and we have to take a look around at the ACC standings and some scores from this last week next on Cuse Countdown.
Jason, let's go see your room.
What do you think? We kept it a little spare, so you can decorate it how you like.
Dinner! Go?
Excellent. Soccer is fun. Yeah, I saw you guys out there. We're the family.
Yeah!
Oh, I thought you were on my team.
We're back for one last time here on Cuse Countdown. Max Gifford, Andrew Della, Piana, and Sam Reis closing up shop talking about Syracuse against Boston College this Saturday. Guys, the Orange sit at 6-2, BC at 4-4. And when Syracuse sort of lost that first game to Stanford at the beginning of the year, they fell dramatically in the standings. But since then, they've started to have a little bit of a rise.
Absolutely, and I think when we look back at that Stanford game, it's ugly, but this team is turning around. Look at that right now. You're only 6th in the ACC, so you have a chance, but Miami, SMU, they've been kind of running the table. How about that Louisville win over Clemson? That completely shifts the entire landscape, but if Miami, SMU win out, they meet in the ACC championship because they don't play with each other, play against each other. That table is set for both of them.
That's what makes things very interesting. The fact that we found out this weekend Clemson's fraudulent after that loss to Louisville. So a Miami SMU ACC championship, that would be pretty fun. I think it's Miami's conference and nothing to lose there. We'll see though how it pans out.
And SU got a couple strokes of fortune not having to play SMU, Clemson, or Louisville this season. Still a little bit of a chance, but the Orange still have to play just 4 more games. That starts with Boston College this Saturday. Let's see your score predictions.
Let's do them.
Me first.
Go ahead, my friend.
28-24, Syracuse ends up winning.
Yeah.
No matter what year it is, it's now 2024. I still don't take Boston College seriously.
I don't blame you.
They don't have any fans. It will be more like a Syracuse home game. There'll be more Orange fans there. I can guarantee it. I think that helps out a little bit. It's not a true road environment, so Syracuse gets it done by 4.
I'm going to agree with you, my friend. 31-28, Syracuse gets the victory. I'm saying a game-winning field goal for your guy, Jackson Kennedy. In that game, he stays perfect on his field goals and delivers Syracuse the victory in prime time.
1 pick for Syracuse, 2 picks for Syracuse. Make it 3 picks for Syracuse. 34-20 will be the final. We want to give a thank you to our producers, Dan Papillo, Grace Bartels, Grant Anthony, and Terrence Murphy for a great semester here on Cuse Countdown. Enjoy the game, everybody.